Welcome in citywide, statewide, nationwide, worldwide. I am the big O, Jerry Ostroski. She is Sara Larson. We are part of the hottest new show in New York. I always wanted to say that. One of my favorite Saturday Night Live segments is Stefan. We are the hottest new show in New York. Line to Gain on the Buffalo Rumblings Network, and we're coming to you a little different. We had to record a little bit early this week as we have lives, and like my friend Sara, I'm going to enjoy a concert tomorrow night.
Nice.
As at the H.A. Chapman Stadium, the home of the mighty University of Tulsa Golden Hurricane. The tour that is Alice Cooper, Def Leppard, and Motley Crue will be coming in tomorrow night.
I can hang with the Def Leppard and the Motley Crue. I'm not so sure about the whole Alice Cooper thing though. But
well, they're not going to play that long. I think they're starting at 6:00. They're supposed to be all done by 9:45. It's kind of one of these deals where we did this a while ago, way back when I was in college. They did it with New Kids on the Block. They had a concert there, and we made enough money off of the concert. We were able to buy brand new turf for the field. So,
oh wow!
I think this is a quick stop for the boys between Kansas City and Dallas, but it'll be exciting. Get to hang out, watch a good show. Vince will sing every fourth word of every song, as he is completely blown out.
I was gonna say that's what a lot of. I hate to say it, but that's what a lot of artists are doing nowadays. They don't sing much of anything. They're you have the track playing and then they chime in every once in a while. And it's a little, I don't know. I mean, people pay a lot of money to go and see them and then they don't actually perform live.
Our new president, he's there a couple of years. We've got a very progressive president at TU. From what I understand, sometime here soon for a kind of back to school concert, I believe Waka Flocka Flam is going to play at TU. So anyway, should be fun tomorrow night. We have to record, and obviously we have a lot going on. Preseason game this past weekend, Saturday at noon at Highmark Field, took on the Colts. A lot of interesting stuff to come from that. Some good, some bad, some indifference. We'll talk a little bit about that game. We'll talk about specific position performances and some battles that are going on in training camp. We'll also get in a little bit to today. Seems we had a little helmet wielding fight, which was it's that time. I don't think anybody it's 4 weeks in. Nobody wants to do this anymore. They want to play football. And,
I think it's that, and it's the position battles, as you're saying. People have that pressure now, and they want to perform and they want to look good doing it. So,
and the other secret ingredient to this, Sara, is the fact that coaches too like to create stress and like to create tension, and the word that is used amongst the coaching world is strain. Put some strain on your players so that when Saturday or Sunday comes or Monday night, there's nothing they can do that freaks you out because you've already been in the middle of a very high intense, highly stressful practices and situations like that. So some of that can be man-made, some of it player-made frustration, but we'll get into that more.
Yes, sir. So let's rewind a little bit. Let's talk about Saturday. So the Bills won, so a little bit of a positive. Do we really care? Because it's preseason, but we always like to see the W. But pretty much they came out in the first quarter, and we got to see Kyle Allen under center. How do you feel about what you've seen? He played the whole first half and the first basically the first series in the second or the third quarter. So how did you feel about watching him?
Same last name, not the same channel. No, I mean, I think in Kyle's defense, he's new to the offense. He's new to what's going on. You come out, and the first preseason game is always the hardest to play in because you've just been beat down for how many days. You've had joint practices and all those things. Those guys still don't have their legs under them. They're still not completely rested and ready to roll. So there's some of that as well. But, I can't say that he didn't have a supporting crowd. I mean, he basically had the starting offensive line in front of him. We'll talk about Osiris Torrance in a minute. But, no, I mean, no digs, but Knox was out there. Kincaid was out there. Obviously, Cook started the game. There was a lot of weaponry, and he just
Right.
didn't seem real comfortable. His timing was a bit off, and I don't know what it is. The other problem is this, Sarah, and I get your opinion on this, and if you do feel we need to start looking for possibly I don't want to say reject, but somebody that maybe didn't quite fit the numbers at another team and bring him in. But I watched Philadelphia this weekend, and I watched Marcus Mariota go out there, and it was like just a different version of Jalen Hurts. Now, obviously, Hurts is tremendously gifted and a very good player, but Mariota fits that scheme so well that he's able to do the same thing play-wise as Hurts. And I'm not sure that Kyle Allen's that guy to Josh Allen. So,
Right.
Your opinion on that.
Yeah. So, well, first and foremost, I am not as positive as you. Now Kyle did have his PFF grade was fine. I think it was fourth in our list of best PFF grades on offense. He handed the ball off a lot. So, and when he did throw the ball, it didn't look great. He had a couple of really good passes. We didn't use Knox or Kincaid much of anything. They seemed to be blocking more than being targeted. Probably smart on Dorsey's behalf, not to give up too much. I wasn't super impressed with Kyle Allen. Now, like you said, he pretty much had the whole starting offense, there for him. Whether or not we were keeping things back is a whole nother question. Only Dorsey can determine that. But I am a little nervous. And when I'm sitting here thinking whether or not we should be considering Matt Barkley over Kyle Allen, that's concerning to me a little bit because I don't think Barkley's the answer either.
No.
And obviously I don't think that that's going to be, Barkley was out there with third and fourth string players, mostly undrafted guys. I look at it and say, obviously the defense Matt went against was a lot different than the defense that Kyle Allen went against. But I'm still at the point now where I do think we should be looking. Sometimes you get what you pay for, but there are options out there to trade for some players. I hate saying it, but Sam Darnold, he's an option and would cost about the same because he made a little bit more than Kyle Allen this year, but it was a signing bonus and his base pay. So his base pay is around the same amount. When you talk about someone that fits, we saw it with Kansas City. That game, after Mahomes went out, they still were clicking on all cylinders and their offense looked great. And I don't even remember the backup quarterback's name that was doing it.
Gabbert.
But he was no, it was somebody else.
Kyle Gabbert played quite a bit. Now, if they put somebody else in before him, I don't know who that is. Because I know Gabbert. Yeah, he was. Yeah. He was, and he had the beard. So, no, I hear what you're saying.
Maybe it was just that, but I feel like we lost out on Bridgewater. We lost out on some options that we could have brought in that I think would have fit the scheme a little bit better than Kyle Allen. I know Kyle and Josh are friends. I just don't want it to ever come down to affecting the season.
Well, I think a big part, Sarah, is this is what I look at, and people talk about Josh Allen and everything that makes him great. I really, truly believe with what's going on in today's football, you've got to be able to pull the ball down and run and make plays with your feet. I just really do. I think that's a huge part of the game nowadays. If things break down, especially when you're looking at a backup quarterback, a guy that might not have the throwing ability of the first guy, or a guy that maybe comes in, is a little bit rusty, is not quite locked into what's going on, that in the back of your head, he always has that ability to pull the ball down and make plays with his feet. And I think that's Josh Allen's biggest attribute. And then you look at what we have behind him, we really don't have that. And it'd be nice to try to find a quarterback. Sam Darnold obviously isn't it, but somebody that has that. And you talked about Bridgewater. I think Bridgewater's biggest issue is he's had a ton of injuries as he's gotten older. he's not super reliable for the price tag that he has, linked to him. But it'd be nice to find a guy that could go ahead and get the pocket moving and maybe do some of the things and complement Josh and do some of the same stuff he does. I keep going back to the Mariota situation in Philly. That's how I feel about him. I mean, it was like looking at the same guy. And obviously Marcus was, if not the number one overall pick, close to it, has played a ton of starting football in the NFL and now is, finishing out his career as a backup, but they didn't miss a beat. And I think that's the biggest thing is who's the guy out there that you're never going to find a guy that's got a cannon like Josh, that can throw it like Josh, but you can get a guy that's similar that can make plays out of the pocket. And that's kind of what I'd like to see him try to go get.
Yeah. So, I was texting with somebody the other day talking about kind of the same thing, like who could we even trade for? Because there's no free agents really left. But, thinking about even like the Steelers, Mason Rudolph, I don't know if they're going to keep 3. I don't know if that's an upgrade from Kyle Allen.
Well, but Mason's kind of like one of the Budweiser Clydesdales. He's not going to – I watched him play for 4 years at Oklahoma State just down the road. He's not a big runner. But, yeah, I mean, they're similar.
Yeah, but, just maybe getting him out of the situation he's in right now might, open up some capabilities for him to shine if ever needed. Hopefully, this is a moot point and no one's ever needed as, the second string quarterback. But there's not a lot of second string quarterbacks out there that I'm super confident in when you look around the league. There's probably, 5, 6, 7. Huntley in Baltimore, Brissett, but he actually showed that he can start a whole, pretty much 3/4 of a season last year when, waiting for Deshaun to come back. So there's not a lot of people out there that I would be super confident in. I was really hoping we were going to get someone like Bridgewater or Brissett. But in the end, when you see what we paid for a backup quarterback versus what some of these other guys were getting, $6-7 million, even $4 million is, 3.5 times more than what we paid. So,
well, I think our perfect backup quarterback we saw this past weekend. I like Minshew as much as anybody. I think he complements what Josh does very well. I think he's
but I don't think I don't think the Colts are going to give him up with Richardson being their number one. I think that they want that veteran to be there to.
And I don't know how you feel. I was kind of and it's the same thing I did with Hurts last year. I was impressed a little bit with Richardson when he played this weekend.
I think he played great. I know that
poise. I thought he had great poise. He never looked shook at all, and that was a big deal to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was him that threw the interception, right, to Dane Jackson.
Yeah, but it was a weird. And that's the one thing he'll have to learn in the NFL is you can't make those types of plays that you made in college, throwing the ball out like that. He got flushed, tried to make a play, and you can't do that in the league. And so it was the Dane Jackson pick where it was early, but other than that, I thought he pulled out of what should have been a tackle for loss and had about a 15-yard gain on a quarterback read. Now I was impressed with him, and the biggest thing was watching his body language and how he handled the moment. He was not shook whatsoever.
Yeah, I have no other than obviously the pick. I was looking forward to watching him play, and it's his first game. So, and preseason everything. So I thought that he held himself pretty well, and I'm looking forward to seeing how he develops as the year goes on. The one thing I will say about the Colts is their offensive line is not great, and it kills me because 2 or 3 years ago, I think they had the best offensive line in the NFL. So it goes to show how people, move on and how it can quickly affect your team. I feel for their running back situation right now because obviously
they've had a little bit of success up the middle now. I mean, they didn't just completely get stuffed running the ball. I think they definitely had some issues with the pass blocking, but
Well, we also did have quite a few several 4th down stops as well, 3rd down stops, 3rd and 1 stops as well. it made me feel a little bit more positive about our depth, especially on defensive tackle and on defense on the ends. I was pretty impressed, but it goes back to me thinking, how many people are going to actually make this team. So do you want to go into that right now, or do you want to talk about the offense a little bit? I know you wanted to talk about the wide receivers.
The offense. I want to talk about the offense and Torrance, but I will say this before we move on, because I'd be amiss not to bring it up. It is quite evident in being familiar with McDermott as a DC in Philly. He will blitz to stop the run. He will blitz to create things. We're not going to be I don't think the Bills are going to be a very big, eat up 2 blocks and things like that. They're going to move and they're going to fill gaps with safeties, corners, and things like that. They're going to attack. That's why I laugh about all the boo birds out there that are at one game in, and it's like, obviously we need a veteran middle linebacker. No, obviously we don't, because our middle linebacker doesn't have to do the things that he used to do. And really, Tremaine, and he's a great player. I'm not saying he's not, but his style of play is he's long. He can go sideline to sideline. He can see the ball and get to it. He can drop deep in Tampa too, but he is not a run stuffing, one gap type linebacker. He's not a put your face in there guy. That's not a knock against him. It's just not what he does.
Yeah.
So
I will say,
I
I get what people were complaining about a little bit about Dotson. He didn't have a great game. He did have a stop with Damar Hamlin on 4th and 1. But regardless of who I felt affected the play a little bit more, he still got credit on the shared tackle for that. But I don't feel like he had a great game. Now, it depends, and I will say this because we talked about this a little bit with when we talked about Edmonds in the past. He had I think 2 tackles, and one was the shared tackle. But was that what the game plan was? Was he supposed to be more of a spy and just kind of make sure he stays out there and make sure no one gets past him? Was he supposed to be out there just making sure he caught the plays?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
so you think he just had a bad game?
Yeah, I don't think he played well. I just don't. And I think it's probably what bubbled into a little bit of today. And we heard the news out of training camp of him wielding a helmet, and he might have got challenged a little bit by the coaching staff. I mean, your starting middle linebacker to me is still Dorian Williams, and obviously he's got to learn, and his learn rate will control when he plays and when he doesn't play. But
right now they have him at the weak side backing up.
I know, and that's the thing. That's the thing, and maybe that's because they don't want to put that play calling responsibility on a rookie linebacker, because you have to be able to know where your shades are up front and move guys if they're misaligned and all those things. But if you look at the middle linebackers that McDermott's played with as a DC, none of them were like Tremaine Edmonds. They were pluggers. You're looking at Dan Morgan. You're looking at, Kuechly. They were more hardcore, true blue. Kuechly could run in this. If he didn't have injuries, is probably a Hall of Famer. But still, he was a tackling machine. His face was on the football all the time, and that's the type of middle linebackers they want. That's the type of linebackers they have, and maybe they feel they have that with Bernard and Bernard and Dotson, but obviously Bernard being hurt, he didn't play. So moving over to offense, I made a comment on Twitter after the game, or during the game, of basically let the coronation of O'Cyrus Torrence begin. The thing that stood out to me about him was he is a freaking bull. I mean, he is a physically strong, big human, right? And he did have some issues a little technique-wise on some pass pro stuff when he got pressed a little bit on the outside, his outside shoulder. He collapsed that hip a little bit, probably still has some tendencies of when he played tackle. When guys were in his face, he was putting 2 hands on them, and it reminded me of Leon Searcy. I mean, he was putting hands through people's chests. moved guys off the ball in the run game, worked well with his teammates. What you'll see, Sarah, out of a guy like him is that it's that term I've used it before, the term situational awareness, right? As he gets more and more comfortable in his position, he will be able to evaluate the play before the snap is even made and know where his help is, know where his danger zone is, and all those things. He looked to me like he's still trying to figure that out. And that's where maybe some of the limitation and technique it looked like, when really, it's trying to figure out where his help and where his guys are going to be. But the other thing that was really, really interesting was he's so physically big and strong. It reminded me of young Reuben Brown. He just put a hand on somebody and choke him down. And that's how Rube was until Rube really got the flow of the game and really understood what was going on. He won because, hey, my guy is more physically superior than your guy. And it's that simple. And, when I look at Torrance, that's what I see. So he still has a lot to work on. He still has to get more comfortable. But I think that's your starting right guard when we
I was very happy that they started him so we can see him against the ones for the Colts. The biggest thing for me, also Bates came in as the backup center. So that was interesting because I know I had talked about, wondering what we were going to do there and whether or not we were going to keep Mance in order to be that backup. But Tommy Doyle and Ike, right in the beginning of the third quarter, they gave up I think it was the first play. It was just terrible. And Tommy looked like he tweaked something. They're saying it was the same knee that he just had was it an ACL or MCL or both? ACL, I don't even remember.
It was probably all three things. It's probably cartilage, MCL, and ACL, I would imagine.
So they're saying that it's just a contusion, but then other people are speculating that it might be a strain or sprain. But I wasn't 100% sure that his position was safe to begin with, and I mean he just let that play blow up, and but then today, if most people, again, we're recording this on Tuesday, but if most people didn't know, Brandon Shell didn't show up to practice today, and then it was known that he's retiring. So now Brandon Shell is, it's huge. He's primarily just right tackle, so I didn't kind of see him as a swing anyways. Quessenberry can swing, but I had Shell as our backup. I had him as number 2, and I was kind of concerned of whether or not, Quessenberry was going to make the team until I, started seeing, Tommy, and I was like, well, there's a good potential that Quessenberry makes the team because he can play both sides. How do you feel, or do you feel that, we're going to go out and look for another right tackle, or do you think that Quessenberry begrudgingly is going to be able to be the swing tackle? And, do you think we keep Tommy Doyle regardless now?
I think they're in trouble. They're one injury away from being in panic mode. Deion Dawkins has been incredibly durable throughout his career. He's not a guy that tends to have a bunch of injury issues, but obviously Spencer Brown does. And I love Spencer Brown, and I love him and Torrance together. I think that gives you a really physically nasty side of the football that you can run behind. I think eventually that's where their bread and butter will be made, as those two play together and build a relationship and understand where each other is going to be. I'm a big Spencer Brown fan, but I mean he's rolling with a situation where at any moment he can be laid up for quite a while. Quisenberry is a guy that can get you through a game. Tommy Doyle is a guy that can get you through a game. I was kind of hanging my head on the Brandon Shell pickup. I thought that was a very, very good pickup by Bean because it brings in a veteran presence that can play right tackle, probably get you through a game at left tackle if you had to. But he's a guy that's played at a high level. He's got some good game film and can go out and you can win games with him. I don't know if we have anybody like that on our roster right now. I don't want to see Ryan Bates playing tackle. To me, anyway, when I look at our roster, when I look at our roster and I say, who's my best third tackle? Well, it's probably the guy that's starting at right guard because, you can say, oh, well, he's a guard. Guys, we just moved him to guard a month ago. He's played left tackle or right tackle his entire career in the SEC against some of the best competition that you can play against and gave up 0 sacks. So, honestly, that's probably your best option at right tackle if you have an issue with Spencer Brown. You put Bates in it at right guard so you get a veteran presence next to Torrance and then let Torrance go. There'll be people that lose their minds over this. But I'm just telling you, I don't with the Shell retirement, it puts them in a very, very precarious situation. And, I'm with you. I think Bates is your inside swing guy, right? Do they keep Edwards and have him as a veteran backup inside too? I don't know. But
I think they need to keep Edwards.
Right. I mean, after Edwards and after, obviously Shell now gone, then you got Bates. After Edwards and Bates, I mean.
Well, I think Ike is going to take some time to come back, like to really come back to form. But, so I think that they keep, Ike in there as well. But I'm starting to think that if they don't pick up another right tackle, they might only keep 9 people on the line,
Is it me, Sarah, or does it seem like they have the same guy over and over and over again? It's like they've got all these guys, they got all different names, and they're all the same dude. They got the same build, they got the same ability, they play the same positions. I mean, it's like they've got all these guys like, tell me the difference between Mance or Edward. They're all the same to me. And, nobody really sticks out.
I mean, that's the one thing that over the years, though, that we've heard from McDermott and from Bean is they want the guys that are interchangeable, that can play all the positions inside, that, or if they're tackle, they can be a swing tackle. They want, multiple positions. So maybe in the end, it kind of ends up where they do look like the same player because they're kind of expected to be. I've seen some of the 2 rookies, Broker and Garage, and I think that they probably want to try to keep Broker, but I don't see them keeping him, as an expense to somebody.
Guy at best.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying is I don't see them keeping him at the expense of somebody else, which means that they got to cut him and hope he clears, clears the waiver in order to bring him back to practice squad. So I'm kind of, wondering if they only keep 9. But last week I was concerned that we might keep 11. So
well, I think that they'll probably never keep more than 10. 9's probably a good number with this group. I wouldn't put it past Bean and them to try to go find somebody after the cut's made to see if there's somebody out there they can bring in to help with that depth. The guy that I was kind of really disappointed in, looked kind of uninterested, and maybe almost feels like the writing's on the wall, was Quentin Morris. I thought he played horribly. He missed.
I think he had one catch that I was, like, oh wow. But then he had a couple of drops, and he didn't look, the part. I have went back and forth about this. I did it last year as well. I think Quentin Morris is a very, very good tight end. But if he's not going to show up, then maybe we only keep 2 tight ends, knowing that we're keeping, Reggie Gilliam, and put him in a pinch if we need to. Then who's the tight end that we picked up?
Sternberger's a very good tight end. He did have the fumble on the big hit with the helmet put on the ball, but Sternberger is a really good tight end that is in the mold of, he's kind of a hybrid between Knox and Kincaid. He's more of a route runner, but he can block.
But I could see him, putting him on practice squad, not thinking that he'd get picked up. So maybe we as much as we've all been saying 3 tight ends, maybe we only keep 2, knowing that Reggie Gilliam can come in, and then we keep
to me, that's what makes sense
on the practice squad.
That's exactly what makes sense to me. Sternberger was a USFL guy. He's from Kingfisher, Oklahoma. I think he played at A&M, I believe. I know his brother might have played. His brother was in the league for a little bit too. Both of them were tight ends, but no, I think you're 100% correct. I feel bad. I like Morris, but I just thought that he looked completely uninterested on Saturday, especially in the run game. I went back and looked at some of the stuff, and just was not there. So, we talked about it. You and I talked about it. Running backs are running backs. I mean, Cook should be the guy that gets the majority of the work. Harris was in there, but he didn't play this week. He's there. I thought Murray looked like Murray. He did what a veteran guy does. He's a pro, right? He knows what he's supposed to do. He makes
doesn't
plays.
Look 33, though. He definitely looked good on some of the – I mean, granted, he was playing more with, the second and third team. But I thought he looked really good on several runs. Cook looked great. I think he averaged 5 yards per carry. I'm excited to see what –
it also helped on the touchdown run when we line up, and the Colts line everybody up inside the tight end. I mean, it was like, thank you for that, Chef. I appreciate it. But
But I would like to believe we just read that right. Like, I want to
Cook read it right. The rest of them blocked their play. There's, I'm sure Mitch Morris is probably sitting there going, he's done it so long. Like, why do we have 11 guys inside the tight end, right? But no, kind of going what you've been talking about lately, and you like to talk numbers and all that. We just had the conversation about what do they do at tight end, and do you consider Reggie your emergency guy? Do you go ahead and keep Kincaid and Knox? If you let go of Morris, you put Sternberger on the practice squad. Now all of a sudden things are starting to free up a little bit. I think we got a tremendous logjam at receiver.
Right.
Granted, I'm not at practice every day. I haven't been to practice. I just watched the game. But, I think that there's some guys that are making waves. I know he dropped one ball. Khalil Shakir is a good receiver. The Andy Isabella kid, to me, that's what I look at when I see a slot receiver. He's my slot guy.
Thank you.
Yes, he is a guy not trying to impersonate a slot receiver. He is a slot guy. I think he's got a lot of ability. I think he's a playmaker. He runs well with the ball. He's fast, and he's a return guy, right? So you've got him. I think the fly in the ointment, and I keep going back to that term, but we talked about it earlier. Right now, Justin Shorter is not an NFL receiver. Now, granted, he's got an NFL body, but he's got a lot to learn. And, do you risk, what was he, a 6th-round pick?
5th.
He was a 5th. So obviously a 5th is probably not going anywhere. I've seen crazier things happen, but here's a guy that's going to suck up a roster spot at receiver, and I don't know if he dresses day one. I don't know if he.
And I agree. I don't think they will dress him. I think he'll be inactive until they feel that he can really perform on special teams. In the end, I feel like that's why they drafted him, was special teams, and the hope that he's going to progress into, this great wide receiver. I mean, he was a number 1 recruit. He was a 5-star number 1 recruit coming out of high school. I think that they think that there's something there. He had a couple of really good plays during camp. Granted, it's camp. I don't see them letting him go, because even if everyone's like, well, practice squad, they still got to let him go. They still got to cut him, and he has to go through waivers. That man with that body is not going to make it through waivers, in my opinion. But we've all had those, opinions before and made out to look like idiots. We were all like, don't cut Blackshear. No, everyone's going to want him. And, he made it. He cleared waivers, and we put him on the practice squad. So we all have those feelings. I just am because he's so good on special teams, I just feel like they will not give up Shorter. He was kind of a little bit of a reach. They drafted him in the 5th round. He wasn't projected until the 7th or as an undrafted free agent. So I feel like they took that risk because they wanted him. I don't think that they will just give him up. So I am still trying to figure out how they get creative with the roster, because I like how much Isabella's been playing. I feel like Hardy can be used once in a while as like the gadget play guy, and then exclusively as our return man. And then I look at Isabella as being the actual slot guy, and then having Shakir come in and spell whoever needs to. I feel like we might keep 7. I want to say we keep 7, but using Hardy as, the exclusive, return man. I don't think Hardy's going anywhere. I don't think Sherfield's going anywhere. Obviously Diggs and Davis aren't going anywhere. So I obviously want Kincaid and Knox to get a lot of targets as well. So keeping 7 is risky, but if we only keep 2 tight ends, there goes the additional spot that I think everyone's worried about.
It was again, like I said, they do have some sorting out to do. That'll start to happen as we move into another preseason game. Now they only play 3; they don't play 4. So this next game will be your game where you see the starters play probably a half and a quarter. I don't know if we'll see Josh or Diggs play that much, but I think 99% of your roster, or I should say 99% of your starters, will play that half.
Usually they only, I was gonna say usually they only play Josh a series or maybe a quarter.
Right.
So we'll see, how that.
So yeah, and so here's something I wanted to run something by you real quick, and just kind of wanted to see if this is something that was maybe a little concerning to you. Or there's defensively, it was they played fine. Like I said, the thing that was nice to see was they have an aggressive nature to them now. Obviously, the secondary is going to have to get used to that because they're going to get put on an island a little bit more with the pressure and the things that McDermott does. Are we concerned yet as a fan base? Are we concerned yet as a group about the progression of Elam at that cornerback spot? Are we worried that he possibly is maybe not where he needs to be at this point in his career?
So I've been, hearing, and again, whether or not it's true or not, I've been hearing that he is the CB2. That even though they've started Dane Jackson a couple of times, it's more to push Elam, I guess, but that he will be the starter on day one. I guess if Jackson comes out and keeps on looking the part, I think that there was a couple of plays that Jackson didn't look great on, but then he had the pick, which he did look good on. I think Elam looks decent out there, but again, he went against different competition than Jackson did. I believe that they will probably start Elam at CB2 this week, so he gets a chance to really have his reps. So I'll let you know after this week.
Here's why exactly, but here's why I bring this up, Sarah, because we've heard, because last year when he was picked, it was kind of not 2 years ago, I guess now this is his second year. When he was chosen, there were some people saying, well, it's going to be a learning experience for him because he's played in the Florida defense where all he's done is stick his face in a receiver's chest and played press man his entire career, right? And we know that that's not what Leslie Frazier was about. Now we're in a situation where, he's probably going to get a lot more press man type situations. And you would think that he would flash and he would pop. And I don't know. That's what it kind of concerned me with. And like you said, maybe he starts next week.
Right.
But, it was that's the one area that surprised me is that I thought that he would be a little bit further along than he is now.
Right. I've watched a lot of tape on him over the last year now, because I started last year. I was like, when did he change? Because he went from not looking great, and then the last 5 or 6 games of the season he started looking pretty darn good. And then I watched him a lot at camp, and then again for this game. And I plan on hopefully getting to see him a lot more this weekend, because I hope he plays with the first team. But the one thing that I've noticed is he gets very handsy, and he did get called for a penalty or 2 on Saturday. And it kind of bothers me because he reminds me a lot of Sauce Gardner when it comes to the hand checking and the getting handsy. Yeah. Sauce doesn't get called for it, he does. And
well, he don't have a cool first name like Sauce.
it bothers me. And I think Sauce is terrific. I'm not trying to dig at him whatsoever. I think he is he's one of the best. But it kind of, it makes me feel like, well, he was picked top 5. So do they give him a little bit more,
Yes.
leeway, versus, what Elam's been getting? I can't wait to see how he progresses this year. But he needs to be careful and see what the refs are giving him every game, and realize that if he starts to get called for, one time he gets called, he needs to back off a little bit, because they're going to continue to call it.
There's nothing worse, though, than preseason officiating, because
True.
this is why there should be year-round officiating, and not these guys can go sell insurance and then come back and be officials. And
some of them are executives and vice presidents.
Right.
Like they have real jobs.
One of the refs in the league, one of the top refs in the league, is from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay. He was a principal and a head basketball coach at a local high school forever, until recently he went to just being an official. So, they Clay Martin is his name. You'll see him. Clay's the real big, tall, blonde-headed dude that's always real stoic. But there's nothing worse than officiating in the preseason, because all these guys have just been through X amount of workshops, because they start their deal up right about when the players do. So they've been doing their workshops, and they've been coming in talking to the teams, and guys, this is what we're going to call this year. And so now they got their preseason checklists, and they're out there trying to fill up quotas, and it's like going through a speed trap in a small town in Oklahoma, right? I mean, preseason football is already brutal enough as it is. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to throw 500 flags. We're going to make it a 9-hour affair.
And there was a lot of penalties called. It was a little sloppy at times. So the one thing I will say that I was impressed about is, I was there, so I don't know if they showed it on camera. Group got called for lining up in the neutral zone, and him and Vaughn were both sitting there talking to the ref that called it, and kind of showing him what he was doing, and trying to figure out. I thought, number one, for Vaughn, awesome to just be there, because the ref might not have been like, who the heck is this group guy? This third-year player thinks he can, take away my time type thing.
Right.
But the fact that Vaughn wanted to understand what was being called and why it was being called, Vaughn impressed me. Seeing him a couple of times during the game, just on the sidelines, talking to the line, talking up the younger players. If he ever wants to be a coach or a GM like he talks about, I think he's going to be amazing at it. I really appreciate what he was doing, on the sidelines. I don't know how much of it they showed on TV in the first half. I haven't been able to rewatch the game yet. But yeah, I was definitely impressed with Vaughn. So
my favorite part about Vaughn this weekend is when they interviewed him on the sidelines, he was courteous enough to take his damn sunglasses off and put them on top of his head. So when he gave the interview, you could see his eyes, and you could see that he was engaging with the sideline reporter. That was the most impressive thing that he did this weekend for me. But
Vaughn's a gentleman. Well, we have just a few minutes left. Do you have anything else to say about the game, or?
Yeah, real quick. I just kind of wanted your because oddly enough, I actually saw people that, I don't know if it was to get a rise out of people or they were actually serious. What was your assessment of DeMar? How did you think he played, and how did you think that all went?
I mean, he had two really good plays that I saw, that I, paid attention to. One was a solo tackle that, he was pretty much the first one there to break, to stop the play. And then he had the one with Dotson. At one point I was like, he's not going to make the team, because we already have enough safeties that there's a good chance he shouldn't make the team based on how well he performed. I know that with everything that happened, there is no way PR would kill us. The PR would kill us for letting him go. So of course he was going to make the team. But, there's been nothing but positive things being said about him, about how he's been playing. But you've been hearing his name a little bit more than
some
you
people said he
normally do.
wasn't as aggressive. He didn't play with that kind of throw your body around thing and all that.
So maybe once I see it on television, it'll be different. But I didn't notice that in person. I
thought he played fine.
Yeah, I felt like, oh wow, that was Demara that made that hit, or oh wow, right. Demara's in another stop on 4th and 1. So, again, once I watch it and actually pay attention to more specifically to players, I might have a different thing to say next week when we talk about it. But obviously we're going to keep at least 4 safeties. At one point, I felt like we would keep what's his name that we got from Atlanta?
Marlowe.
Yeah, Marlowe.
Marlowe.
I felt like we're keeping no matter what. He's on the team. But I kept on thinking, bringing Dean back and everything. I felt like we were going to keep him potentially over Hamlin. But the one good thing about Marlowe is we could tell him, hey, you're just going to be on the practice squad.
We got Cam Lewis as well.
Yeah, Cam's been injured though, hasn't he been? Like I haven't seen. Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't seen much of him.
Him and Hamlin are both tied for that second position.
That's right. Yeah, there's a good chance it's going to come down to one of them. The one thing with Cam is he can play both. The slot or the nickel DB. He can play as a DB and he can play safety. So it's kind of like, well, DeMar can't play all those positions. So then do we keep 5 safeties and then put Marlowe on the practice squad?
Here's what I would
it's going to be interesting.
If you had to cut DeMar, okay, I think DeMar as a man would probably understand it and probably handle it. I mean, the way he's handled everything right now shows me no reason why he wouldn't handle it well.
Oh yeah, and he'd get picked back up in a second. There is a team.
Let him get picked back up. Let him have his career. And the minute his career's over, you call him on the phone, you bring him to the stadium, and you hire him as your player personnel guy, as your guy that's player development, that works with your rookies, works with your guys. He's in the community, and you give him a lifetime job, and you say you can be here as long as you want to be here. And you can bring your foundation to the city of Buffalo, and you can do your foundation and whatever you want. That is what he's earned, and he would be unbelievable in that position. And I think hopefully it's somewhere down the road we're talking about that they just hired him after his career's over. But obviously there's a lot of football left to be played by him.
Right.
And it did bust me up a little bit seeing him out there. I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing
yeah,
thing.
And so. I mean, I think we're all rooting for him. It is a business, though. So
yes.
Do the Bills look at it as we need to make the right business decision for PR standards?
No.
What looks the best, or do we need to pick the 53 best players to be out on that field?
What looks the best for the Bills? That their record is really good and they're playing winning football and they're trying to win a championship. Right. I hate to say that. I'm not trying to be cold. I'm not trying to be insensitive. They will always do what's best for the football team, no matter
right.
what.
And UA's a really good, and I actually have it. I just peeped at my notes. I actually have the asterisk by Hamlin and Cam Lewis because I was saying that 4th spot is going to come down to the 2 of them, and everyone's saying no, Cam Lewis is a lock, DeMar's a lock. I'm like, okay, well that means we're keeping 5 safeties, and let's go through the cornerbacks. How many cornerbacks are we going to keep? Because we're going to keep Taron Johnson, we're going to keep Dane Jackson, we're going to keep Benford, we're going to keep Elam, we're going to keep Trey White. That is a lot of DBs between our corners and our safeties.
I do think if there's a few areas, if we want to go out and trade for one of 2 positions, one I think is more important than the other, and after today's turn of events, it went to number 1 from number tackle. 2, which is a tackle backup, a solid guy that can play snaps, not take up space. A guy that can play snaps is probably number 1. And number 2 is, do you want to go ahead and revamp that backup quarterback role and bring somebody else in? If you're going to go trade for somebody, we've got a couple positions where we've got some talent stocked up to where we could throw guys in. DBs are one of them. I think you've got a lot of interchangeable defensive linemen. You could probably throw somebody in with that. And the other position is wide receiver. We got a couple of guys that could possibly, guys move in and guys move out, and you're like, wow, I can't believe you traded them. But when you see what you're getting back for these guys,
Boogie Basham actually has had a great camp, and he actually looked really good out there on Saturday. There might be, at one point we were talking about whether or not Shaq gets cut and put on practice squad. But there's a potential to keep Shaq and try to trade Boogie. And at one point we were like, but there's no trade value for Boogie, but I think there is now. I think he looked really good.
And we're hearing how wonderful of a camp AJ Epinesa had, even though he was invisible on Saturday. We've heard he's had a wonderful camp. So does that
we do have options, there, especially on the edge. I still think we keep all 5 defensive tackles. I don't think there's going to be any question there. I think we keep, Daquan, Ed Oliver, Tim Settle, and then Puna. I don't think there's going to be, any changes there. Vaughn depends on whether or not he's still on PUP coming into week 1. I think they should keep him on PUP.
Yes, I would too.
But then again, if we got rid of someone like AJ Epinesa or Boogie Basham, does it speed up his return a little bit more? Probably does. So, I think that there's some options there. Wide receiver. It scares me to think about, because we don't have any guys that are, terrific that, are backups. We have some that seem to be serviceable. And we're hoping that like Shakir steps up this year, and we're hoping that, he has a better year. We're Hardy and Sherfield, I don't believe are tradable. Really, because they just came from other teams, and it would would almost look like they just couldn't make our team. So I think that the wide receiver, even though we have a deep wide receiver room, I don't think that we have any that are really tradable unless we were looking at trading Davis, which I don't think happens. Davis has had, and I will eat my words, but he has had an incredible camp. I still hope we wait to. I hate saying it. I still hope we wait to sign him to an extension, because I want to see how he actually performs. If he performs great the first 8 weeks of the season, then give him the extension. But I want to see him during the regular season. I want to see him out there, not on the practice field, looking great like he did last year. So, other than that, just quickly before we end, most people know that Delvin Cook has signed with the Jets, $8.6 million contract, 7 of which is the base, and then 1.6 as incentives. Zeke has signed with the Patriots. I believe that was a $6 million base. I think that included a $1 million signing bonus. I don't think there was any incentives with that one. And then, as we talked about a little bit earlier, Brandon Shell, our backup right tackle, decided to retire today. So it'll be a busy week, I think, with us trying to figure out what we're going to do on, at right tackle, whether or not it's going to be Questenberry or we're going to go out and start looking. But, we might wait until cut down day, until we have to get down to 53 before we do decide to go out and get another right tackle, because maybe we sit there and wait to see if there's a surprise cut or two. There usually is. So I don't know. Our line just got me scary again.
Well, hey, that gives us something to talk about next week after this next preseason game. And you've been listening to the Line to Gain show here on the Buffalo Rumblings Network. Again, we came to you recorded this week. Next week we'll be live. Will be Wednesday night, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. We'll talk Bills. We might get into a little bit of college football. I'm not sure. But we got the college season coming up as well. So for Sara, Larson, I am the big O. Jerry Ostroski. As always, we'll catch you next week. One love and go Bills.
Go Bills.